Hola, ladies and gentlemen. Hoka 93 in the place to be. I'm here to present a new subject, topic, you name it, for my video, for my channel. Um, Basically shying away from wrestling-oriented projects, because variety is very well for a channel, and I've always felt that my channel needed a great deal of variety in topics, and basically this topic, I was supposed to do this video over in the summer, but never got to it. Nothing really kept me from doing besides procrastination, to be honest. But when I actually set the date to do it, which was supposed to be September 1st, something bad happened to my laptop. Long story short, I had a hard disk failure, and that I thank Staples for fixing it back up. Got it back last week. Actually, the day to last week, last Wednesday is when I got it back. Um, But back to the topic at hand. Um, Basically, the subject that I came up with over the summer was favorite movies to never have sequels. Movies that even if the sequels were planned or if they still are planned, they have yet to happen. So it still counts that this movie never had as a movie without a sequel. And beyond some of these movies, most of these movies are movies that didn't need a sequel then, don't need a sequel now. And when I made the list, it wasn't in no, specific order from greatest to least or least to greatest or by year. They just came off the top of my head. And the first movie that came off the top of my head when I did this list was Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump came out in 1994, starring Tom Hanks, Sally Fields, Gary Sinise. Um, Forrest Gump is one of my favorite movies, even though it came out in 1994, a year after I was born. The first time I got to see it was in 2002 when I was in fourth grade. Forrest Gump is one of my favorite movies. I can watch it. I can never get tired of watching Forrest Gump. And if it's on HBO or Cinemax or you name it, and I see that's on, I immediately watch. I'm immediately going to watch it. Um, the star before I get into Ride Forrest Gump is one of my favorite movies. Some key stuff about the movie. Let's kick off. Let's kick off with the kick things off with the accolades, because the accolades speak for themselves. Best director, Robert Zemeckis. Best actor for Tom Hanks. Best adapted screenplay, best visual effects, and best picture. And the visual effects were so extensive because they had to incorporate Forrest into archive footage with historical figures such as JFK, John Lennon, um, and Richard Nixon. Um, Forrest Gump did a lot of things. Like I said, it makes the movie one of my favorites. The character itself had to overcome adversity, such as being born with leg braces and being born with a low IQ of 75. And the leg braces will eventually come off due to because when he was being chased by his bullies on his first day of school, they broke off and he ran really fast, and that's what one of his specialties was, that he can run really fast. And by running really fast later in life, it would lead to him being recruited by Alabama, the University of Alabama's football team, the Crimson Tide, and he'd go on to become an All-American football player for the team. But back to him having a low IQ. Even with the low IQ, it never stopped his mother, who was played by Sally Fields, from supporting him. And she supported him all the way, never neglected him, always gave him support, always. And always had great ways of explaining things to him for he could understand them. Such as, a stupid is as a stupid does, and life is a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. And you know, another thing about Forrest Gump that makes it one of my favorite movies is because of the supporting characters. He has supporting characters such as Jenny, his best friend Bubba, and Lieutenant Dan. And we first started with Bubba. He met Bubba when he was enlisted into Vietnam, and they made pact, a promise to be, shrimp and boat partners after they got out of Vietnam. But unfortunately, that would not happen because Bubba would die in Vietnam during an ambush. And but Forrest kept his promise and went on to become a shrimp and boat captain. And that will go on to something happen later on by being a shrimp and boat captain because that leads to Lieutenant Dan, played by Gary Sinise. Um, the character of Lieutenant Dan, you know, even though Bubba died in that ambush, Lieutenant Dan was a victim of that ambush. He suffered severe wounds to his legs, both of his legs, and he had to get them amputated. But Forrest saved him from dying in that war. But by doing so, gained animosity um, from Lieutenant Dan because Lieutenant Dan, you know, this is the crazy thing about Lieutenant Dan's character. All of his ancestors fought and died in a American war, and he felt that was his destiny. And by Forrest saving him, he felt he was cheated out of it. But as much as I brought, like I said earlier about the shrimp and boat shrimp and boat, deal. Um, Lieutenant Dan would go on to become Forrest Gump's first mate, and they were going to be successful and become millionaires because after after surviving, Hurricane Carmen eliminated all their competition, they would only shrimp and boat left, and they got all the fishes, and they was able to make the Bubba Gump Shrimp, company, and they invested all their money. Lieutenant Dan invested all their money into Apple, and now they will become millionaires. So when you hear them become, Forrest Gump, a guy with, a low IQ, becoming a millionaire, he not only was a millionaire, he was a national celebrity. He was, he was a war hero. He was great in ping pong. You know, did a lot of stuff with a low IQ. You know, very inspirational, very inspirational. And as for Jenny, his love interest, and also was like the perfect foil because she was completely opposite, and their lifestyles were completely opposite, and you can see that during while Forrest was in war and stuff, always wondering how was Jenny doing. Jenny got too deep into the '70s culture, the hippie culture, because she would go on to sleep with countless men, and she would go on to become addicted to heroin, and even at one point she considers committing suicide only to back off from the idea at the last minute. But eventually, Jenny and Forrest would actually get married. But before getting married, Jenny actually had a son, also named Forrest, played by Joel Osment. And Forrest was a daddy. And Forrest and Jenny would get married, but unfortunately, she would succumb to an unknown virus, which would go on to be the AIDS. Because at that time, because Forrest Gump takes place from the timeline from starting from Forrest's birth in 1994 all the way to 1982 when he's a middle-aged man. She was at that time in the early 80s. It was only until August of 82 I read that um, the term AIDS was coined by the CDC. So Jenny succumbed from AIDS, and it had to have been from sleeping with countless men, and the living the fast life in the dark, all that stuff. But man, those things made the movie special, and the crazy thing is, um, Forrest Gump not only witnessed, um, not only was a witness to defining moments in American history, he also actually was influential into some of case in point. Um, he was influential into exposing the Watergate scandal in the Watergate for the Watergate Hotel, which led to Nixon's resign. And so it's really funny. Most of it was in a, for instance, when he when he ran for 3 years, coast to coast, a coast to coast run for 3 years. During that span, he was actually influential into getting some failing entrepreneurs, you know, was able to get their businesses, you know, going up instead of going down because they were so failing. But he did some things inadvertently, and because of those things, they became successful. Like for instance, there's one scene where when he's running, mud splashes on Forrest, and the guy next to him has a yellow shirt, and he says, take this one. Nobody likes the shirt anyway. And Forrest wipes his face with the shirt, and it comes out, the stain comes out with the signature yellow, the yellow smile face. And he says, "Have a nice day." And the guy will become successful because of, so basically Forrest in the movie is behind the famous, smile icon with the, the yellow circle smile icon. He was behind that. And Forrest Gump movie has such a cultural impact because of Forrest Gump. The Bubba Gump Shrimp restaurant that is now today open because of the movie Forrest Gump. So it wasn't as though the Bubba Gump Shrimp restaurants were up before Forrest Gump and they just used, okay, let's have Forrest Gump, be influential towards that. No, literally the Forrest Gump movie was influential into the opening of Bubba Gump Shrimp restaurant, which would go on to be very successful. So yeah, all that stuff, was very telling and very good for the movie. And it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I'm happy it never had a sequel. Even, um, I'm trying to remember if it was planned to have a sequel. I think I read that it was plans to have a sequel, which would have never made sense. And I'm happy that it doesn't have a sequel because Tom Hanks played that role to the T. And to come to find out that thanks to Chris, that John Travolta was actually was up to play the role first, and he turned it down, and he says he admits that was a mistake. And then I also found out that to be honest, actually Bill Murray was considered the role. Very surprising. But Forrest Gump is the first movie off this list of favorite movies that never have a sequel. At the end of this video, there will be a message with a hint for the next movie. And can you guess it? I don't know. You got till next week to guess it. But this is Hope 193 telling you to stay true to who you are and accept yourself as you are. Take care, ladies and gentlemen.